say so here, but she also has taught about Chinese food, Chinese cooking. In fact, our plate lunches are partially, I think, indebted to one of her students. And also she's been with the state of Hawaii's education department to help Chinese immigrants to become American citizens. So we're indebted. She can help share with us the problems that immigrants who are functioning according to traditional expectations, how they encounter our health services programs and our community. So we welcome Mrs. Law. Perhaps we'll ask Sister Ernest Chung to also come onto the stage, and to Venerable Carmeleche Somo to also come. Let me introduce Sister Ernest. She also is very international and multicultural, and she is a Marino sister, a Catholic nun, but also has a Buddhist background, so she is familiar both with Buddhism and with Christianity. She has been active recently in the various health services in Hawaii, having returned from the East Coast, where she did work, I think, in Toronto and the East Coast in the health field. She was with the Alzheimer's Association, so she can speak very eloquently about that phase. In fact, when we talk about having the right consciousness at the time of death, Alzheimer's really challenges that teaching and causes us to draw more deeply into other forms or teachings of religious truth. She is now with the Catholic Social Services Immigration Center, the Catholic Immigration Center, so she can also share that adjustment problem. And I would like to also, and I'll leave the stage, but I want to especially and warmly welcome Venerable Carmeleche Somo, really one of the world's leading advocates of reform within the Buddhist movement and enabling Buddhist women to develop education and their, to use a phrase, their place in the sun, where they had that, but through different cultural changes have sometimes not been able to fully embody and receive the Buddhist teachings. She truly is an international world leader. She arranged the first international program for Buddhist women. I think she has one book out, Shakya Dita, Biographers of the Buddha, and just has another one just hot off the press on American Buddhist women. So she is a leader in this field and can talk from her rich heritage, I think, ordained in the Korean Buddhist tradition and in the Chinese Buddhist tradition, and her heart and soul, of course, we can speak about her soul in this framework. I guess her heart, anyway, written in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Anyway, I will get out of here. They are much more competent than I to handle this end of the program, but please welcome them all.
I wonder how many of you understood me. I just say something in Cantonese. Please raise your hand. Not even 10. Imagine you just got off from Honolulu Airport. Somebody greet you with a lei and say something that aloha. Don't know. So I just give you some idea what language barrier is. So when you go to China, you landed in a hospital, nobody interpret for you, and you are not able to tell them you have stomach ache, or you have something wrong inside or outside or whatever. You just use all kinds of hand motion, end up that you have nothing, and you have the wrong thing. Similar to the immigrants in Hawaii, they have wrong services sometimes because of language barrier. I want you to pick up this hangout outside. Do you have it? Some Chinese proverb. I hope everybody has a piece of that, because combine some of the Chinese proverb for this talk, especially, we want to follow the tradition as Chinese from mainland China, from Taiwan, from Hong Kong, from Southeast Asia, or from wherever, but we are Chinese. And I'm talking about immigrants in Hawaii. With the experience of 21 years working with Chinese immigrants, I can tell you about lots of stories about Chinese. First of all, if you have this, how many of you have been to a Chinese funeral? And then you got a lisi, and you got a piece of candy. What do you do with that? You just eat the candy. And what else? What about the lisi? You spend it. Before you go home, you buy something, candy, some sweet. So this is for you to, after you visit the funeral home or whatever funeral, you spend this money. This is for good luck, lucky money, okay? So next time when you go to a Chinese funeral, you spend this lisi. And then Dr. Lin mentioned about bank note from hell. This is it, $5,000. I just give you a sample. And next time when you see people carrying this around, don't be so ignorant, because I know that on the mainland, a Caucasian went to visit a family, and this is no joke, this is real. He put that in the regular lisi packet, you know, the red envelope, and give to the family when they have a big birthday party. You see how offended this is? Because you don't know the culture of the person. As the family received this, yeah, love. Huh? Don't do that. This is for the people who offer to the family members or friends to have some pocket money. We burn this. But don't just tease people by using this as a joke. This is no joke. So we are talking about our culture and the American culture. And we are talking about people go into the hospital. What do? Water. They learned that word. Water. No. Milk. No. I know how to say water and milk. No. So what do I get? I'm going to have a surgery. I need something like that. But nobody really spend time with that immigrant, saying that before surgery, the night before, you are not allowed to have any fluid, nothing to eat. If you care enough, you talk to the patient. And I know that lots of health professionals in this audience. And I also want to tell you something about those immigrants in the hospital. And you have their chart, their birthday, and the name. The birthday is, sometimes it's not their birthday. They're using lunar calendar. It may be 1 month different from whatever you think is on paper. So as a doctor, you prescribe medicine to such an individual. I think you better find out. Once I was an interpreter for a patient who had cancer. So when I went to visit him, I saw a small birthday cake. And then I asked him, today is your birthday? No, but those people are crazy. They walk in and sing birthday song to me. I said, let me see your green card. So I looked at the alien card. Yeah, today is your birthday. No. So he mentioned the birthday is a month later. A lunar calendar. So when you prescribe medicine, be sure that you get the right birthday. And also, the name is very different. And do you know that more than 60% of your immigrant Indo-Chinese refugee are Chinese-speaking, ethnic Chinese? They have a name, and Vietnamese like Tran, Van, so-and-so. And the middle word is our second generation name. It's just like my name, YUK. All the 4 girls in the family have the same YUK, means J. But don't call me just Yo. Then end up you're calling 4 different persons with the same name, because we have 2 words to a first name. So you also have problem in the school system and in the hospital when you have patient with the same name, trans man, because you omitted their last word. So when you take out the chart, make sure it's two words come together. Then you got the right person. The similar thing happened to me at the immigration. When the student took the test in naturalization, I always go there to keep them company. And then they call a name. So they walk, because they call you. And then can be me, can be her, can be anybody with IYUK. So the wrong person went to take the exam. And the examiner not even take a good look at the picture and match the person. She tested the person passed. And then another person walked in, and that didn't pass. So when inside the naturalization certificate, the one who passed actually didn't pass. Who didn't pass actually passed. So end up that, when I checked the picture, I said, no, that's not the person. So this can really create a lot of problem if you don't know the culture of the individual. And then Dr. Lin also mentioned about we find a date no matter it's for marriage, for funeral, or for anything, we look up this book. It's called the Chinese Almanac. I know that you saw that in Chinese grocery store and the bookstore, maybe you don't even know what it is. This is the book that we consult all the time when we want to find a lucky, good day for a special event, for your birthday party, for a funeral, for a wedding, or for whatever. So if you don't know how to read the Chinese, and you can find a translation. I found a translation. This person translated some of the things in the Chinese almanac. So if you're interested in this, and find this Tongshu, and then you will match and then see what you can find. And those are the smart Chinese. We have 5,000 years of history, and we know a lot about all this thing in lunar calendar. Now, after you pick up this sheet of paper, and I want you to take a special notice on number 16, the last one that I put down. 5 blessings in old China: longevity, wealth, health, virtue, and peaceful death. A peaceful death is one of the best blessings we are talking about, not violent death. So when someone dies of car accident, dies of crime, killing by someone, or committed suicide, that's not the desired kind of death. We want peaceful death at home, especially at home. Okay, as immigrant, you don't speak the language. You try not to go to the hospital because nobody understands you. You are going to drink water? No water. You want milk? No milk. Don't go to the hospital. So just stay home. And also because of a Chinese culture, if you are going to die, you stay home. Then you're surrounded by your friends and relatives, and they will know exactly what to do. If you are Buddhist, they chant sutra. They pray for you. If you are Christian, they also pray for you. No matter you have friends who are Buddhist or Christian, they do the same. We have the same effect you pay to people. Same like our students who are going to take a citizenship test, some of them are Buddhists. They go to the temple to pray. And if they pass, they go back and thank the Buddha for it. Now, we are talking about Hong Kong, we are talking about China, we are talking about Deng Xiaoping. What happened? Deng Xiaoping is getting old, and Chinese are leaving China. Chinese from Hong Kong are leaving Hong Kong because of 1997. All the children of the elderly Chinese came to the United States as immigrants. They were professionals, and then now they are not able to find their own job. They end up in the McDonald's, hotels, whatever. So why not go to the mainland? So they went to the United States mainland, maybe get a better job, they stay there. Okay, what about the elderly Chinese? Oh, it's so cold there. And I don't speak English. And I don't know how to catch the bus. If you ask me to live in New York or Texas, I don't think I can. So they choose to stay here. So we talk about living will. You are talking about money, wealth, to give to their children. No, they are talking about their will for their children and tell them, please find my clothing. When I die, I want to wear this set of clothing. And it's going to be in the box on my living room or in my bedroom, in what drawer, because all the children are away from them. Their children are not here. They only have friends. And I'm also a notary public for 20 years. Since I speak Chinese and read Chinese, they have all this handwritten instruction, they call will, for their children and relatives to tell them, to instruct them, I want to have cremation, I want to have this and that, all in Chinese and have it notarized and witnessed by 2 people. They want to make sure this is it. This is the words that I want to tell my children who are now on the mainland. When I die, it's so sudden. It's just Dr. Lin mentioned that, people who have HIV, you can plan ahead. But what if I walk out from here and I get killed by a car? I don't even plan. So they have this all made and ready to let the children know about the wish. And then we talk about number 3. Number 3, what are we talking about? Having an elderly person in the family is like having a treasure. No, not in the United States. Your grandchildren and your children hated you because you have different kind of culture. And the children and grandchildren have been here 20-something years, very Americanized. They're eating hot dog, hamburger, steak, and you are eating jai, and you are eating chow mein, and all this. No. So, you cannot cope in a family when those are your relatives, very close relatives. So they live alone in an elderly housing project. So, do you see that this is a treasure? No. As someone said, I'm a ghost in the family because they hated me. They don't even want to approach me. They don't want to take care of me. So now, I have a group with Sister Ernest and some of the Chinese. We want to organize a Chinese elderly so they can have friends and they can have their own support system. That's how I have my cooking class. I use cooking class as a tool to put these people together. They can associate, socialize people, and have friends. At least to have somebody to cry on their shoulder. Okay? Number 5. Salute the gods when entering the shrine. Greet the people when entering a house. And you have grandchildren's friends and go in. They don't even acknowledge you are there. But in China or Hong Kong, you go in and you greet the people, especially we really respect the elderly. We go in and we say, oh, grandma, auntie, how are you? I come to see, your grandson today. That's what we're supposed to do. But in the United States, no, your children all change. Your grandchildren have no such respect. So what does it do with our Chinese prophet and our tradition? Nothing. Change. So we are the one in here. We have to teach them how to cope with whatever they want. Okay, number 13. A journey of 1,000 miles starts at one sleep. Also, number 14, a falling leaf goes back to the roots of the tree. Where is our root? China. When you were born in China, you consider that's your root. Even now, we have lots of local born, they try to find a root in China. But when we talk about the root in China, that means when you die, you want to bury back home. Okay, I just mentioned about the communists is going to take over Hong Kong. Deng Xiaoping is going to die. They might have turmoil in China, we don't know. But people are very worried. Okay, so you buy cemetery plot, you plan ahead now because you are not going home. This is very sad because you have no way to return home, and this is the place that you left long ago. You want to go, now you are not able to go back. So people who are in the United States who don't speak the language or they have been here a long time, Like me, I have been here a long, long time. I came here when I was 16. But I went back 10 years to teach in Hong Kong and Taiwan. And I really can feel for all these new immigrants who come in, because once before I was an immigrant. And second time around, 1974, I came back just like an immigrant because everything has changed. So I just give you some thought about what the immigrants are doing and how to help them when you are one of the person around them. And one of the things that I just recently, make this because I have this health card, medical emergency card printed in Hong Kong in Chinese and English, because I found that a lot of immigrants, they don't know how to tell you about their children's phone number, their home address, their own social security number, emergency contact, and doctor. 2 months ago, someone was killed around the corner of Culture Plaza. 90-year-old Chinese old man. The medical examiner called me instead of call anybody else because in his pocket, he carried my business card. So I really feel that this is very important for the Chinese or for any immigrant or even for us to carry something around if something happens, and then people can help you. Well, I better not take all the time, Sister Ernest. Other people need to talk. Thank you.
It's difficult to follow Mrs. Law and Reverend Ted Fitchell. I really appreciate the sharing this morning. And so I'm going to just raise more questions. I don't have any answers. Today must be the day for 5. Mrs. Law talked about 5 blessings. Reverend Fitchell mentioned several things of 5. And I myself have also written down what Chinese have lived by, the importance of 5 kinds of relationships. You might already be familiar with them. The Confucius way of looking at human interactions are governed by 5 relationships. The first, the relationship between the leader and the governed. Second, the relationship between parent and child. Relationship between husband and wife. Relationship between brothers and sisters, brothers and brothers. And then the 5th relationship between a friend and a friend. The attempt to, in fact, to conduct these relationships in a right way is what every Chinese family, parent, try to teach their children. Today I have, in coming to share in this discussion about living and dying in the Buddhist culture, I have called this little sharing by the title called Widows Not Yet, Orphans Not Quite. When Dr. Chappell first was in discussion with me about planning for this session, and I got Mrs. Law involved, and I was working at the Alzheimer's Association. So the title basically is really referring to families who are experiencing the disease and the families who are affected by the disease and the relationship they have with the person who is suffering from the disease. So my talking about death and dying is going to be a kind of an expanded version of how we look at death and dying. I know that some of the concepts that have been presented earlier is, or talking about Stephen Levine's book, somebody asked him, I don't know whether when this person is sick, he says, I don't know whether I should think of dying or living. I think the answer was to the person, isn't that the same thing? In Alzheimer's disease, some of us have often said, we never hear about this word, 20 years ago. Why is it so much coming around? Is it an epidemic? Do people not have the disease before? As we look at the disease process, or as we look at what Alzheimer's disease is, we realize that in the Chinese tradition, as well as in a lot of traditions, the idea of senility has actually been always prevalent. In fact, this Chinese word said, 返老還童, it's going back to the childhood days. And it is just accepted in the family, in a traditional family where there is support of family and friends and help. This is easier to, when a person is in that stage, the behavior is easily accepted, and there will be ways of supporting the family to going through this. Because Alzheimer's disease is very gradual onset, we're now looking at 2 to 20 years of the process with very gradual loss of memory, loss of intellectual functioning, inability to relate to, inability to perform the most routine tasks that the person was able to do before. The person who is affected by this disease and the people around the person, by its nature of the disease, is definitely affected. If we look at the Chinese culture and we look at a certain amount of acceptance in whatever happens, then we can look at this virtue, or this virtue that we try to practice, of acceptance in two ways. First, when a person is exhibiting some symptoms of memory loss or severe memory loss, the family would tend to say, well, my grandmother is old, it's okay, and there's no need to go to the doctor. That also, the whole idea of acceptance then becomes the strength or the way that a family accepts the behavior or the losses. That is a strength, but that could also be a weakness, because then the time to get help from outside the family would be very much delayed, and oftentimes I find meeting with families, especially Chinese families, Asian families I would say, the seeking for outside help becomes a last resort, or the family is tremendously stressed. I hear families say, my husband is not the same person he used to be. Or a daughter say, we can grieve our father yet because he's not dead. That comes really from the title that I have given this discussion, and that is a person who place great emphasis in the relationship with another person, such as in a husband and wife relationship. The husband is no longer the same husband that she remembers, and what is she supposed to do? And that's why we have this widows not quite and orphans not yet. Dr. Tang earlier on, Dr. Lin earlier on mentioned limbo, the state of limbo. That is what we are seeing this. Now, in another way of looking at it, if we look at Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's way of looking at the death and dying process, in Alzheimer's, we're talking about a continuous process of chronic loss. I'd like to bring our attention to looking at that, what Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has made famous, the 5 stages or thereof. Actually, of course, we all know that it does not happen consequentially. It just happens, kind of in a process. To hear the news of a sudden loss, or to hear the news of something that a pending loss, one reacts with shock. It is not true. It cannot be. A diagnosis of a disease such as Alzheimer's can also bring me about that shock. Denial is another process the person goes through. Cannot be true. Anger, why me? It's epitomized by that. Bargaining. If I only do this, or I actually have families would say, 3 years ago I yelled at my husband, and we were going through very difficult times. That must be the time when he had started having Alzheimer's. It's like, if I did not do that, then maybe he would not have been sick. Or is there something that I can do? If I do this, can it reverse the process? The stages also then represent talks about the stage of depression, feeling sadness, deep sadness and the impending loss, and also the actual loss, moving towards acceptance. If we accept this way of looking at the life, death, and dying process, we are actually looking at a loss that could pretty much be capsulized in a short period of time. But when we look at Alzheimer's, of a person going through this loss in a chronic kind of a way, in a continuous way, over a period of years, you can see the stress that is created to the person as well as to the family. One of the most famous books that has been used to help families to go through this process is called 36-Hour Day. In fact, the issue of 36, of course there's no 36-hour day, but it certainly feels like 36 hours for families who are dealing with. So my question this morning is, in the rituals of the faith tradition that Chinese Buddhism helps families, most rituals are helping to formalize the grief or the happy occasion or the emotions of a particular situation, helping to formalize, to point to the reality, and also to assist in that. Funerals do that, weddings do that. Major events in one's life have significant rituals that helps a family to go through. In the issue of Alzheimer's disease, the reality is blurred. There is no particular time that one could ritualize that loss. This is a problem. What ritual can we use? How can we be supportive? How do we share our compassion? To the issue of prayer, I have a family who said to me, what should I pray for? Do I pray that my father died as early so that he does not need to go through this disease, or the family does not need to go through this suffering? Or do I pray that, I am more accepting of this disease? Recently, actually yesterday, I received a phone call from from a friend who said to me, my neighbor's wife had a mild stroke. She's in a hospital, she's Chinese. I wanted to call you because I wanted to know what is the right thing to do, because I don't want to jump in and help when help is not appreciated, and I don't want to not do anything because we care, because my husband and her husband are very good friends. So I shall end this with this little story, how I responded to the woman. Offer to help, not just say, if you need help, call me. Offer to help, be specific. In this case, of course, can I drive you to the hospital? Can I visit? If visiting is not appropriate, when you visit, can you bring this little card to her? And can you tell her that we're thinking of her? Those things are human responses, and yet steeped in tradition. Small gifts. I find myself telling her, if you were going to go to visit, here in Hawaii, of course, people bring flowers. Chinese, if it was traditional Chinese, do not appreciate cut flowers because that's what we use in the altars of Buddha or when somebody is dead. So maybe visiting with a plant, green plant, or fruit, or something. I think families, friends appreciate the support, and you can, make significant mistakes and you would be accepted, because it is often we say the thought that counts. When we look at this incident of a stroke, and we know, or a serious illness, and we are aware of how we can be supportive to the family or to each other, then maybe that gives us some light of how we can be supportive in the long run to families who are of Chinese Buddhist tradition who are suffering from Alzheimer's disease, because it is a long process. There is a poem, a short poem, outside the cemetery in Hong Kong. And it says in Chinese, but I'll translate it into English. It says, 今日去歸故土 他朝君體也相同。
He doesn't really need a translation, but she's just so moved and not able to talk. The meaning of it is today your body is going back to the earth, and the next day your body is the same like me. So there's a philosophy behind it, so please, you want to continue?
I guess for me, what it says is really the faces in the mirror is ourselves. As we look at how other people live the death and the dying or the living process fully, we ourselves are affected and we also participate in the process. So I guess for me, I like to advocate for families who have somebody who has Alzheimer's, who is suffering from Alzheimer's, to each one of you to participate in sharing the compassion and the support the families need. Thank you.
I had to think very hard to come up with a 5. But I came up with 2 cultures and 3 examples. How's that? I want to talk a little bit about intercultural exchange, the meeting of cultures, and specifically the meeting of Western culture and Asian culture. And here, to be even more specific, I would like to take American culture and Tibetan culture. First of all, I'm struck at how very different the Chinese culture is from the Tibetan culture, even though these 2 countries were neighbors for thousands of years, but their traditions, their ways of looking at the process of living and dying is quite different, and the customs are quite different. My first experience while living in a Tibetan refugee village of living and dying, or the process of dying, was seeing a Tibetan funeral. And it was a procession, very informal, but at the head of the procession was a tanka painting of a particular meditational deity. And so I was interested to see that this process, this procedure was also used when an American woman died. There was an American woman who had come to Dharamsala to seek medical treatment. She had high blood pressure, extremely high blood pressure, and when I visited her in the hotel room, she continued to eat high salt diet and when I felt her legs, they were hard as a rock. She was definitely on dangerous ground. So I wasn't surprised about a week later when the principal of the Buddhist Institute of Dialectics sent a monk up to call me. The woman had died in a nearby village, and they wanted me to help with the funeral arrangements. The woman had a daughter, a young daughter, but the daughter was very distressed and unable to cope with the situation on any level. So the next morning, myself and the monk got on a bus and went to the place where the woman had died. And we were having a great deal of difficulty getting a jeep to take the body because there is a lot of pollution taboo about dead bodies in Hindu culture. So that, again, another intercultural focus or matrix is the mixture of Tibetan refugees living in exile in India, which is primarily a predominantly Hindu culture. So we had to pay a very high price to find a jeep that would take the body because it was considered inauspicious for a jeep to have to carry a dead body. But the decision was made to bring the body back to Dharamsala and to have a Tibetan ritual said for the woman. So the next morning we gathered at the cremation ground and began the funeral process. And we had called monks from the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics, where she had been a donor, to attend the funeral. Those were my classmates and schoolmates. And I was charged with taking care of the daughter because the monks didn't know what to do with the girl. So they asked me as the woman to help with the daughter. And they piled firewood on the body around, below and above the body, and spread kerosene around to light the pyre. And the daughter was asked to circumambulate the body of her mother as a sort of last rite. And all of the time, the monks were saying prayers. There is, of course, the ritual of reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Poa practice. But in this case, since the woman had already passed away 2 days before, all different kinds of prayers were said. The Heart Sutra was recited, the prayer of good conduct, many different prayers of many different meditational deities were said and recited at that time. And the family would make donations to the monks and nuns to say these prayers. The interesting intercultural thing that happened was that the daughter was determined to take all of the ashes back to America. And this was, besides being a logistical nightmare, to pack up kilos and kilos of ashes, because of course not only ashes of the mother were there, but the ashes of the wood that had been used to burn the body. So it would have been several hundred kilos of ashes to transport all the way 500 miles to Delhi and then get them on an airplane. So I tried to counsel the daughter in the Buddhist way that the mother had already passed on to another rebirth and was happily living a new life, and that we had to let go of the previous body, which in any case had been old, had been sick, and now she would take on a new body. This was a difficult process for the daughter, a difficult concept for the daughter to understand. The other two examples I wanted to give actually occurred here in Hawaii, and very recently. A few weeks ago, I began getting phone calls from Kauai. The sister of a young man had died on the East Coast in South Carolina, and the family was Episcopalian, but the brother had been a Buddhist of the Tibetan order. They were happy to report that in this small village in South Carolina, they had happened to have 4 Tibetan monks who could come to the hospital and recite prayers before the brother died. So they felt very happy about that, and I felt it was also very auspicious. I know these monks, they come from the Dalai Lama's monastery, so he really had the best possible send-off with his monks. And then the family still had to cope with the loss, and they were very open-minded. They were very understanding, very spiritual people, all of the brothers and sisters, 5 of them. And they wanted to respect the spiritual beliefs of their brother and to do some prayers of the Tibetan tradition at the funeral. So the funeral was at an Episcopalian church on Kalai, and the minister was also very open-minded. He, in fact, called me several times to make arrangements for the funeral because he wanted to know how we could do the funeral together. And it started off with a three-gun salute because he had been a Vietnam veteran. So that was interesting, a three-gun salute. And then the full Episcopalian funeral service with readings from the Bible and hymns. And then came a rock musician with sound equipment to sing a final song for his friend, something about tears. And then at the interment, I, as a Buddhist nun of the Tibetan tradition, was asked to say some words. And so I tried to say something that was both in accordance with the Tibetan tradition, with the Buddhist beliefs, but something that was understandable to people of all different ethnic backgrounds and all different faiths. Then the last example, and I'm sorry time is getting short, but that I got a call from the dean of the business school at UH saying that they had lost a young student. Unfortunately, a young student was riding his bicycle and he tried to go between a truck and a car, and he didn't make it. The truck didn't even see him. And it was an instant separation from the body, and it was extremely shocking for the students of the business school. Here was their friend, 28 years old, in the prime of life, extremely intelligent, several degrees, had traveled all over the world, full of life, full of love, and suddenly he was gone. And this was so profoundly moving for both the faculty and the students that they wanted to do something to commemorate their friendship with him. And they discovered that he had been a Tibetan Buddhist. So at 10 o'clock at night, the dean was calling me whether I could come to officiate at the memorial service the next day. So, in short, what we're seeing, especially in the United States, but also in Asia, is a meeting of cultures. And it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us to open our minds and open our hearts to share our beliefs and our ideas from different points of view. The Tibetan traditional teachings on preparing for death, to live every day as if it were our last, to purify the mind so that we'll be ready for this transition at any time, to live our lives so that we don't have to worry about our next rebirth because we've lived such a positive, virtuous life that we're assured of a positive rebirth in the next life. This is something we can, whether we believe in past and future lives or not, we could practice even in this country. And then in Asia, of course, too, with all of the Western cultural influence, where the younger generation probably knows more about rock music than they do about Buddhism, there's also a wealth of opportunity for intercultural exchange.
Are there any questions of our three panelists? We have quite a range of expertise here on the platform. I'm sure, yes.
About 200 pounds of ashes, including the wood to burn. Do we separate the wood ashes from the human ashes?
She's asking about the ashes of the body. I mentioned that the total weight of the ashes of the body and the ashes of the wood was voluminous, and we couldn't manage to get them all back to America. So I reached a compromise with her. We sorted through the ashes for about 6 hours to find those that we could identify as definitely having been remnants of bone. And this we packed in several cases, and we shipped these back to the United States. So this made her feel better because obviously her relationship with her mother, her attachment to her mother was not yet resolved. And later I saw her and she has worked through much of her attachment, but actually being able to take these fragments of bone and so forth with her made a big difference. So she was very young.
I had a question about Alzheimer's in connection with Buddhist practice. You mentioned senility, which is not always necessarily connected with Alzheimer's. It can just be part of old age. But now, because we're hearing so much about Alzheimer's, the dementia part might be confused with senility. But even just the senility of old age, how can you be more specific as to how Buddhist practices, as far as the process of dying, might be affected by that?
I don't know if I can respond to that way, but I'll try. I'd like to just clarify. Senility at this point in time is not a diagnosis, but I'm just referring it as a word that most, generally people refer to people getting older. And yet, as they see somebody's behavior, like you mentioned dementia, meaning memory loss, they would say, oh, that person is senile, she's senile. But you look at another person, she's old and that's why she's senile. And they look at another person and say, my grandmother is 95, sharp as a tack, not senile. So they know that just being old is not, not everybody who grows old acts like people who have lost their memory. So I think relating to that and Alzheimer's, I'm merely saying that with the Chinese family, in terms of accepting old age as a part, parcel of life, and therefore, as the person, exhibits behavior of memory loss, the family would just accept it, that is part of old age. And until they come to behavior such as paranoia or people, let's say, accusing somebody, feeling persecuted or accusing their things being stolen, which could be part of the disease, then they would have to find other reason to explain those behavior. Now, to the issue of just Alzheimer's, the people who have memory loss, severe memory loss due to dementia, only half of them have Alzheimer's. The other half could very well have diseases such as a very simple, not too long ago I talked to a woman who said, I'm ready to go home to take care of my mother because she has Alzheimer's. And I said, how do you know? And she said, well, I've been reading up on it, and she's exhibiting all these emotions and behaviors. So I suggested to her that there are other reasons why somebody might have memory loss, so dementia. She finally took her mother to the doctor, and her mother has a tumor, a benign tumor that was causing, the dementia. Towards the whole death and dying process, because the disease process is so long, so what I'm merely saying is the support is not well set up. Like if somebody has cancer, the medical profession already has a great involvement in caring. And so me as family members would say, well, I'll take you to radiation, I can help you, I can cook food for you, I can, and then you will be able to help. But when the disease process is over a long period of time, what I find is families would say, like if I say to you, my mother has Alzheimer's, and you'd say, oh, I'm sorry, goodbye. Or if I say, if you say, oh, my father has Alzheimer's, many responses would be, I wouldn't want to have that. I'd just rather, die quickly. It shows the fear of the disease, of the people who could be potential support for the family, and that has not been worked out. And because it's a disease And because of health science too, previously people might have Alzheimer's, but they also then die of other diseases. So the time process is not as long. But now with, medical advancement, good public health practices and so forth and so on, the time has, become longer. I don't know if that answers.
Well, perhaps then we could move from the medical to the spiritual and ask Lekshay about Tibet's views of preparing for death and how, if there's been an adjustment for
Well, it's very interesting to note that the people who have done the most meditation practice and done the most spiritual practice seem most unlikely to get Alzheimer's. In other words, spiritual practice, meditation practice is very helpful for staving off dementia and memory loss. My mother thinks it's crossword puzzles, but and that may also be a factor, keeping the mind active. But meditation, because it's an actual training in learning to concentrate the mind, is obviously going to be helpful as we age. And of course, whatever spiritual practice we have, I think would be very helpful.
I like to caution against following that to the logical, because I've seen people who are brilliant professors in the prime of their sharing, and people who have a very intellectual, very centered focus, who have Alzheimer's. So I do not want people to think that if I do meditation, I will never have Alzheimer's, because that is not true. And therefore, the reverse, if people think that, that means if I have Alzheimer's, I'm not focused and I'm not, The point is, we do not know what caused the disease now. We certainly know that the environment that we are in and the people that we're in and the current, situation, we have more, we now have more people. There are 4 million people in the United States that have the disease. So, it is a kind of a mushrooming of the disease.
I do have one comment on that. About a year and a half ago, JAMA came out with an article on Alzheimer's, and they did a large study with about 80,000 people, and they noted that for each year of additional professional or graduate work in college, before to master's, or your doctorates, there was a 15% reduction in the chance of Alzheimer's. And they thought that this was because in this additional mental activity, you forged new pathways in the brain, that for whatever reason the Alzheimer's destroyed the old pathways, there were still failing ways. So there is some correlation between what she's saying about just using what you have and maintain. Not, of course, that everyone who has Alzheimer's, of course, has any reflection upon their use in life. It's just everyone as you can.
Yes, I think this is a very fertile field for research, because we need to look at a lot of different cultural, social, psychological, as well as spiritual factors in this. How do we explain the low incidence of Alzheimer's symptoms amongst, for example, the Tibetan population, and particularly the monasteries? You do find an occasional case, but very few. So I think it would be a good idea to research it and find out what factors are influencing the patterns.
And as an absent-minded professor, I wonder what. I think I noticed the time is close to noon, and I know on behalf of all of you, you would like me to express our appreciation for Mr. Long. I have 2 announcements. One is with regard to the class, and the class is going to be uncertain. You're going to hope you're going to stave off dementia and Alzheimer's if you come to the class, so we'll try that. But if you could make sure you come back here by 12:15, and we can maybe in that end of the hall, and I believe we can also eat in the hall, we can congregate in that corner. Secondly, the lunches are here, and I've been advised that it's best if we go out the back door and circle around so you can then pick them up and bring them into the hall if you wish to eat inside. So please go at the back and circle around and then we'll re-congregate at 1 o'clock. Thank you. We are fortunate this afternoon to have as our leader and moderator Dr. Daniel Kwok, who's a professor of Chinese intellectual history at the University of Hawaii. He has eminent skills. He's not only a specialist on food, actually, but I think, son of an ambassador, right? Your father was in the diplomatic corps. Yes, well, those diplomatic skills are very evident in Dr. Kwok. He is really the founding director of the Center for Chinese Studies at the University of Hawaii, a graduate from Yale University, an author of many, many articles and books, both in Chinese and in English. He's really the leading senior scholar at the University of Hawaii in Chinese history and intellectual history. Our president and the head of the East-West Center, they often turn to him for when they want a Chinese sage to help them in their decision making. So we are honored to have him with us to give some balance and guidance for this afternoon's program. Dr. Daniel Kwok.
Well, it's a real pleasure to be able to come this afternoon. Actually, David Chapel has a way of involving people who should learn quite a bit. So I've really welcomed this chance to come and learn. He and I go back a ways. Twice before, I asked him to speak to some groups of mine, and both occasions were the birth of Buddha. So he every time would remind me that I would pick those days. Now he's picked the theme of life and death in Buddhist culture and societies. And I, for one, am so happy that I could just moderate and sit and listen to what's promised for this afternoon. And that's my job, is to introduce the wonderfully organized program that David and his associates have put together. It's very hot today, so fan away. Without further ado, I'd like to present to you the first event this afternoon. This will be a talk on Chinese Pure Land Buddhism, faith, vow, and practice by the Venerable Yin Lam. The Venerable Yin Lam was a graduate of the Chinese Buddhist Academy of Suzhou, and his own place is in Guangdong, but he's been at our Xuying Shi for the last 4 years. And his talk will be followed by some chants with other monks involved in his entourage. And his talk will be translated by Jingmei Sakata, who will also explain the chants later. So, Venerable Yin Lam.
大家好，今天是一个很好的日子，那么就是我们这个一个弘法的活动，因为这个夏威大学教授 所办的这个，我本人非常的高兴参加这种弘法的行列。各位都是有学博学多闻的，那么我是以本身自己对这个佛法的认识一点贡献给大家作为一个参考。那么今天我们这个教授给我们的题目就是 Living and Dying in Buddhist culture。但是我不会讲英文，我只能是说中国话，所以非常感谢这个大家，那非常也感谢这个 Miss Sun 为我翻译。那么今天我要讲的题目，就是这个题目是非常大的。那么我在其中题目里面只能是一个小题，也是因为时间的关系。所以关于这个问题呢，我所说的这个问题呢，也是属于净土中的思想。这个小题也是净土中的思想，说大说小。那么我说的小题就是大业往生。大业往生当然会说到这个佛教死亡了，佛教也对这个死亡也怎么处理？那么佛教这个死亡有两种说法，一种是我认为是一种是可怕，一种是不可怕。我现在先说是一种是不可怕。为什么我们是对死亡是不可怕呢？是因为我们的死亡不是属于永灭呀，不是永远的毁灭，就是还有机会，就是我们的生命还是在延长。那在我们的生命里边，就是一个延熟的阶段，好像我们一个人坐在这个巴士里边一样，就是说我们坐在巴士上面去，然后还是要下车，下车了就还是觉得我们人还是走了。那么我们从我们这个角度来看这些动物的小的动物来看，从还有我们胎生、四生里面还有胎生这个卵生、色生、化生四类的众生都要毁灭，这个小到这个四类的众生，大呢一直到宇宙间，地球一直到宇宙间都要毁灭的。这个是毁灭，人的死亡是一种自然的规律，谁都免不了的。那么只能是以这个角度来看我们自己的死亡。我们再以佛法的角度去观察自己的生命呢，就是我们的生命就在一种夫妻之间呢，随时落地就是以事常识，很容易就把这个自己的生命就是过去的。那么我们现在的死亡不是属于永远的毁灭，那么我们现在的死亡呢，也是为一个生命的再生。我们知道我们的出生就是前一个生命的死亡，那么这样子呢，是我们所以在这个由业力的所造呢，一直寄托在这个其实业力里面流转到六道轮回里面。那么既然说能够这生命有延寿的性，既然是这样子的，那么我们可以说我们的死亡也有希望寄托在另外一个生命里边，所以没什么可怕。我们就把握现在自己的当下，我们把握现在自己的当下，这个就死亡是不可怕的，我认为这样子。那么另一种说是说可怕的，我们所可怕的就是没有佛法的智慧力量去观察任何一种是世间法和一切自己的生命，自己糊涂来生，糊涂来死，那么这样子就可怕了。还有呢，我们呢所做的东西呢，这个所做的业力就是说我们所做的业力，把业力带走了，不能把自己的生命不能解脱了，那么这个才是可怕的。还是可怕呢，但是我们贪嗔痴三种力量，三种这个习手又把我们自己本身的力量就锁住了，这生命就锁住了，所以这个才是可怕。因为锁住我们的自己的生命，永远都不能超脱，所以永远在堕落，这个是未来生命才是可怕。所以这样子， 我们随景而处，我们在临终的时候随景而处，随景而生，所以我们没有这个定力啊，就是随着这个力，随着业力啊，是转到生死里面去，不能恢复的。所以我们要把握自己的生命。如果说你放死的时候，该死的时候，临终的时候你放不下，一点都放不下的话，那么你就是可怕了。如果说你该死的时候不愿意死的话，那这个才是可怕的，因为你放不下，所以只能是带着这个业力走。真要可做的事情我们不去做，不做的事情，可是我们满身带着这个放不下的，满身都是业力带走的。比如说我们现在你看社会上，我们社会上啊，争名啊，这个最夺利啊，这些东西啊，我们最后呢还是社会的强暴啊，这些东西，我们要死亡的时候带着什么东西呢？就是带一种业力去，任何东西都不可以带的。业力是随时我们的，随我们在那走。那么这样子呢，我们不管他是参禅的人，或者念佛的人、礼拜的人、有修的人、无修的人，都要经过这个临终啊，这个死亡这一刻。如果说没把握这一刻呢，人就很容易就会堕落了。那么现在我们是说，我们的死亡呢，前面这两条路，一条是可怕的一直可怕的地狱，一条是可乐的天堂，两条路走。那么看我们是怎么样去把握自己呢？我们在临终在死的时候，业力全都归到这个临终的时候，这个临终的时候呢，就是会把自己所有的业力从八界前中走出来的。就是这个八界前中，我们佛教也是讲以如来藏性，如来藏性是永远不会毁灭的东西。但有人问我，这个业力谁来主宰呢？这个业力没有任何人来主宰的，就是我们自己来主宰自己的。因为你这个业力是存在我们自己的八界前中，就是如来之藏。这个仓库是永远不会毁灭的仓库。你做了好事也放那个地方，你做了坏事也放那个地方。到这个人到死亡朦胧无止的时候呢，这些业力呢都会来在你的八界前中放出来。所以我们对生死啊，就是说可怕的，就是说这个辛苦的一生带着业力去，还是生死中的生死，痛苦中的痛苦，还没有办法了解，这个才是可怕的。我们知道，在佛教中，还有就是说这个净土大德们还有提倡我们就是大业往生。那么我们反过来说，就是我们是以佛法的智慧去观察一切。我所说的就是在净土方面，这个大的提倡的方面是所说的大业往生。大业往生里面呢，就是说阿弥陀佛有这么样的力量，他们的国家都是欢迎我们这个五浊恶世的众生移民到那个地方去。那个不是说佛说的话，不是说假说，不是说虚假的，绝对是实在的。那么佛是说有业障的众生也可以去。那么他在经典里面有这样说过一句话：不可以有杀生的人，可以偷盗的人，还有男女之事的人，还有这些打妄语的人，还有这个拉酒引诱的人，这些人都是不可以去的。但是这些人没有到那个地方，没有这些形象呢，在娑婆世界有这些出现的人呢，如果说我们现在能够当下修行的话，马上做这个事错掉，然后马上回光返照，自己错掉了，再通过修行，那么这样子的人可以大业往生。那么我们有说过了。还有这个，我们大家也听过这个八哥鸟大业往生的问题，我们这个故事也听过。然后呢，在我们刚刚出家那个时候，我们在福建的时候见了一只牛。这一只牛呢，它是 耕田耕完了要卖出去的，要卖出去的卖什么呢？这个狗农会卖出去，别人给人家杀了，杀的时候呢，就是用那个牛肉来卖给别人卖钱的。那个牧童就是有一天到牛栏里面去跟那个牧童跟那个牛说，他说你今天快点去吃草了，你吃饱了一天，然后呢你明天就被人家杀了，你就不要在这里拖拖拉拉了。可是那个牛打都打不起来，然后牛叫了好多次呢，那个牛就站起来，站起来之后呢就跪在地下。跪在地下之后就是哭起来啊，就是那个眼泪丢出来，像那个牧童悲哀的这种祈祷啊。然后这个牧童就是吓了一跳，就跑到家里去问他妈妈，他妈妈就是一个信仰的居士，所以因为这样子呢，这骄傲就好多的信徒和农民来看这只牛。可是这只牛看到每一个人的时候呢，他都在哭，都在拜。拜的就是两个骨头，两个这个前面的骨头就是裂开的血都崩出来，然后人家看见他这个牛这么伤心了，然后把它骨头包起来了还是拜了，向每一个人拜，然后这样子呢，这么悲惨的事情很感动嘛，畜生能够拜人家，求不要死了，求生命了，那么这样子，所以呢每一个人把钱合起来的放生送到一个庙去，用了200多块钱买下来，送到另外一个庙去放生。送那个庙去放生之后呢，在这个10多年下来，一直都好多人去到那个地方去见那个牛，然后那个牛呢也是向每一个人礼拜顶礼，那每一个人呢都给他一点钱，1块钱啊2块钱啊都是会给他的。那这样子。所以呢，到了这些东西，到10多年下来了，意思之后，没有人感觉到这些牛是很奇怪的，牛拜人，大家都没什么事情。那么我们出家人讲就跟我们一起住嘛，没什么事情。有一天到前年10月份的时候，这只牛病了，要临终了，要死亡了。要死的时候呢，它在牛房子里边病了1个月时间，也没有。一直是不能爬动。那么这只牛要死的时候，到死的那一个晚上呢，它就爬起来，能够站起来，爬起来，爬到那个山林里面去，爬到山林里面去，找到它自己死的地方。那个地方死的地方刚好是一块平地，刚好是它撞的地方那块地，它就死这个地方。可见我们知道这个牛啊都有这样的人性。那个知识还告诉我们说，这只牛如果说死在牛栏里面啊，根本没有办法抬起来啊，不知道没办法抬起来，因为牛死掉的时候呢，你抬起来之后它是会拉长，所以这种情况，我们牛都是有这种自知识字的这种这个修行。那么我们知道，可见我们人类也是一样，大业往生是可以。所以，不但是我们人人大业往生，而且是这个畜生类的东西也可以大业往生。这些往生，我们的现在是说，所以这些都是属于佛教里边的，都是印证我们佛教里边，是我们深深会体会到，就是说，在任何一个这个证明到目前为止，还是证明我们鸟类或者是牛类这些东西能往生。有人会问我谁能证明它往生呢？我会回答你，就是说，在每一个人里边，到人类如果说念佛念到那样的程度的话，自己能够知道在医院里边要往生了，回到家里去的话，不着这样的相的话，这个人也会往生。那么我现在来谈一下往生。往生就是说，往就是去，生就生，生就是再生。就往生就是从这里死亡到另外一个地方去。这个时候没有，我记得这个时候没有指定任何一个地方到西方极乐世界，或者是到这个天道界，或者是到鬼道去。那么我现在所说就是说， 这种我们所往生的目的，念佛人的所往的目的，就当然是西方极乐世界了。那么这个往生里面，就是死在这个世界，就是升到另外一个世界。那么我认为就是不管恶业或者善业，这里面但有哪种业量，就他经书里面记住10念。这个10念呢，就说法了，就是说这个世界，因为我们这个极乐世界呢，是有善业、恶业的往生啊，是有善业、恶业两种 comparison 啊，两种的比例啊。你如果是恶业如果多的话，你的善业没有福分没有的话，那么你现在想往生，你就不会往生了。所以它业力的福分有 comparison 比例，在这里面比例的。我们如果说每个人做一个完全做恶事，都依照经书里面来记住这个10念来往生的话，那这个人绝对不会往生。我现在等到我临终的时候，就有把握这个10念。然后现在呢，我可以去做其他事情，我可以去做这些恶事，那么到那个时候就不会往生。现在请你。
I'll try to translate as much as I can remember. Venerable Ilan said he's very happy to come here to attend this function. He thinks it's a very meaningful function to have in Hawaii. And the topic that was given to him is a very broad topic. And due to the time constraint, he will only briefly discuss one subject within that topic, which is living and dying in Chinese Buddhist culture, or the Chinese Pure Land School. The topic that he will talk about is called taking your karma with you to the next birth in Pure Land. Although this is only one topic, but this is a central theme in the Pure Land School. Chinese Buddhists, there are two views among Chinese Buddhists when they think about death. And first is that death is nothing to be afraid of. Another view is that death is everything to be afraid of. First, when you think about dying and death, and the Buddhists feel that there is nothing to be afraid of because Buddhists consider death simply as a rebirth of a new life. It is not a permanent destruction. Our lives do not end with this lifetime. Death is like, Reverend Ilan told me, like the expiration of a rental lease. When your lease expires, you have to move on and find a new lease. He also mentioned that it's like traveling on a tour bus. When you have reached your destination, you have to get out of the bus. So, because death represents hope, because it is the beginning of a new life, so to many Buddhists, there's nothing to be afraid of in dying. He also said that the end of one journey is just like the beginning of another karmic journey. And we have been here in this universe many, many times before. And don't forget, the birth of this lifetime is also, was the end of our previous lifetime, was the death of our previous lifetime. So for the Pure Land School followers especially, death can be a happy event because their hope is in the future, the rebirth into the Pure Land. So this is a happy event to go to the Pure Land. So what is there to be afraid of? Now the second view, death is also something, everything to be afraid of. Well, when death becomes fearful is when we do not use our wisdom to observe our lives and everything around us. When we come to this world, we are born with ignorance. And if we leave this world also in ignorance, then we have wasted our whole lifetime. And when we die, we will be swayed or blown away by the wind of karma. When at the moment of death, there's usually all the karmas that are accumulated from many, many lifetimes will materialize during that time. And our mind usually are in a state of like a dreamlike state, in a very hazy state. And if we cannot hold on to our correct views or our wisdom at that moment, it's very likely we might carry all the three poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance with us and go to the next life, and maybe even fall into a lower realm of the next life. Everyone has to pass through the gate of death, regardless of whether you are a layperson or a lifelong practitioner of, or a sangha. And if we are not careful at that moment, our whole life's work, our effort in meditation, in practice, may be all wasted at that last moment. And therefore, that death is something that we have to be very careful and to be afraid of. Now, come to the Pure Land School. The masters in the Pure Land School have given us a panacea on how to deal with our negative karmas at the time of death. And that is, the masters told us that we can carry our karma to our next birth with us in a pure land. The Chinese word Wang Shen means going to another life, going to the next birth. And everybody carries their karma. We accumulate our karma through many, many lifetimes. And these are the things that we do not lose when we die. And therefore we carry them to our next lives. This was stated by Pure Land School, the masters in Pure Land School, and is also evidenced by a story that Reverend Yilang told us. This is a true story about a cow in mainland China, in Guangdong. And this cow was about 10, 15 years ago, and he was going to be sent to the slaughterhouse the next day. And the man who was taking care of the cow talked to him the night before that you're going to the slaughterhouse the next day. And this cow seems to understand that, and he started to kneel down. You know, cows are very heavy. When they kneel down and they prostrate, and it's very difficult, and tears are coming down from his eyes. And then when other people come to see the cow, because this man was very shocked, so he went out and told all his friends, they all came. And everybody who came to see the cow would kneel down and prostrate at the person. As a matter of fact, Yilang Master has a picture that someone took of this cow kneeling down. It's a very interesting picture. And then he kneeled down so many times as if he were begging for his life, that he kneeled down so many times and the weight of his body caused his kneecaps to break. And so they bandaged the kneecap, but he still keeps on prostrate whenever somebody comes to see him. So until the villagers, this happened in a village, the villagers decided to gather some money, and they bought the cow from the owner, and they sent the cow to a temple to stay. So the cow stayed in that temple, and that's a temple that Reverend Yilang came. He was around that area, so he knew the cow. He had seen the cow too. And every time someone goes to see that cow, he would kneel down to the person. And this was 12 years ago. And then in 1993, the picture was taken in 1993. In 1994, the cow became very ill. And for several weeks, he couldn't move. He stayed in his stable, he couldn't move. And he could hardly eat. And then the night before his death, See, the temple is like in a village on the mountainside. It's not very easy to come down. And the car is very heavy. But the night before he's dead, he got up on his 4 legs and he walked down the hill. He walked until he reached an open field, and there he lay down and he died. So I think Reverend Elon's point is that the abbot of the monastery told him, if he died in his stable, they would never have a way to bury him because he's so heavy and he's on the top. So it seems like he knows that he's going to die. So he went to an open field. That's where they dig the hole and they buried him. So this is an example of even animals carry their karmas to their rebirth, to their next birth. And in our one lifetime, Reverend Elon said that we accumulate all kinds of karmas through our actions, through our speech, and through our mind, our thoughts. Some are good karmas, some are bad karmas. Good karmas will help us to reach the heaven. Bad karmas will cause us to fall down into hell or to the lower realms. The balance of good and bad karma and the state of your mind at the time of death, in the moment of death, will help determine where we will go for our next birth. If our good karma outweigh our bad karma and we pass away in a very peaceful environment, we may very likely go to the heaven or the Pure Land. If anybody asks Reverend or Venerable Elon to prove that someone had gone to the Pure Land, he said, I cannot prove it, but I can say with assurance that if someone had known that he was going to die, he had known that and he prepared for his own death, and he would leave very gracefully, very peacefully, then most likely that person had gone to the Pure Land. However, one lifetime can only realize one type of karma. So if you have created both good and bad karma, and the next birth will only, because the good karma outweighs the bad karma at that moment, so you will be reborn into the heaven or to a human being again, then you realize the good karmas. But those bad karmas, they do not disappear. You carry with them to your next birth. And when a condition ripens, you might still fall, and you don't accumulate any more good karma, you might still fall into the lower realms because of the bad karma.
我们讲记住十念，在经典里面说记住十念，好多人都抓住这个记住十念是讲来，以佛教说可以允许人做，佛教净土是讲允许人做恶事，但是有些人记住十念呢可以往生，那么现在我们开始知道这个佛法，知道念佛法门，开始知道停下来，做任何事情不要做任何恶事。那么从现在开始，修到临终的时候，那你把握的记住十念。一般你现在就说我把握临终的十念，然后现在是我可以随便做其他恶事，不好的事情可以做，那这种人就不会往生，因为你已经令你自己堕落了。这个在我有一个例子啊，在印度的时候，每一年有一次这个节日啊，就是把女人啊都要把那个花戴到头上去。这个花戴到头上去呢，去表示一种吉祥， 和就种种这个好运，种种意思。那么这个人户呢，想去买这个花呢，可是没有这个花嘛，他没有钱买不到这个花，拿不到这个花给他老婆去戴这个花到这个头上去，那怎么办呢？那只能让他自己到外面去偷了。偷的时候，这个花才产生在这个王卓贵府里边。那么到这个王卓贵府里边去掏这个花的时候，这个人掏这个花要经过这个池塘。这个池塘里面就没有办法了，他只能是想一个方法，我去做个水压。这水压的时候，做水压可以从水的路去掏这个花。可是在这个水路里面呢，就是响的声音呢，被人家发现，被人发现了，要问你是谁呀？他告诉他自己我是谁呀？他说是我是谁呀？那么告诉人家说我是，就是说做人的声音叫了我是谁呀？那么这个人就看你怎么人，你是人怎么是水鸭呢？水鸭是一种鸟啊，在水里面的鸟。那么后来就给他抓起来了。抓起来，人家审判他的时候，他不出声，他就这个时候呢，作为水鸭的声音叫。那这种情况就是说，我们自己已经拿到被人抓去了，然后在这个时候来说明做这个水鸭，就是我们现在所做的恶业，已经作为堕落这个地狱里边去堕了，已经再生已经堕了这个地狱里边去了。那么你现在还讲我现在记住10年来往生极乐世界，是不可能的。所以我刚才这个意思就是说，你已经被人抓去了，被人抓去那个时候呢，你再来做水压的生意已经不起作用了。所以记住10年，它有作恶的人可往生和不可往生，它有2种说法的。所以现在我下面就说这个往生，当然往生，我们从无始以来到现在所做的业力啊，就是非常多，有旧力，也这个辈子做了，也前一个辈子做了好多的业力。这么多的业力里边，我们的感果只能是一样感果一样，果报只能是一样。那么其他的业力呢，都是同时代的。我们如果说做人福分祥，可以往生做极乐世界去，还可以升天去，还可以来做人，还可以到地狱里边去。那么我们的业力一共有好多的业力，有6道的业力。那么这6道的业力里面，我们福分哪一个福分祥的时候，业力祥的时候就投胎到哪一种业力去。那么投胎到天上去，你还有把这个下面5道的业力带到那个地方去。如果说你是人是堕落去的话，那么还是把天上的福分跟人的福分这些业力还是带到这个地狱里面去。所以感果只能是一次，其他业力全部带走。现在我们在这个地方不能说全部是人的业力，还有天福，还有这些恶道的部分，恶道的还有这种种的现象，因为我们的业力是有那么多。那么我们不管他天生在堕落在哪个方面，我们的寿命都有这么多业力来缠着我们，只能是受一种福报。假如说天道祥的话，就是会升到天道去。我们所说这些都是说一种因果的关系来说。那么既然是我们可以说往生到天上去，可以天上的人可以带到地狱来，和地狱去用人类的也带了有恶道的那个业力来这个人道。那么既然是这样，我们也可以记住10念，也有这个福分可以往生到极乐世界去。这个往生到极乐世界去呢，当然不是说我去就去的，不是这么容易的事情。他也有福分、福德、因缘、得生别故，这个是弥陀经边都有这样说过的。那么我们现在的要求就是又记住3种心，一种是所谓自成的心，在这个所谓在观经里面呢，一种是自成的心， 至诚的心就是说真心实意的去念佛，有信心。但可是我们凡夫之人啊，也有假的心，也有真的心，两心俱作。如果我们一个信佛的人，不一定全部是完成信仰，也有人去庙里面拜佛，或者是信仰，他是表面上看来是非常的虔诚，可是他心里面还有这个名利的心存在。这个名利的心存在就是假心呢，是两种，所以两种。所以这个往生呢，又是内外起合在一起去，然后再往生这个极乐世界，又真心真意的去。这个我分为3个段来说。第一个段是一向假因人，一向假心的人不会往生。第二是说一向真心的人，这个人会往生。还有真假记住的人不一定能往生。真假记住的人呢，比如说，好像是不管他哪位信徒啊，哪位出家人啊，不一定能够做到真心真意的去念佛。你表面上会看得非常的清楚，他是内心上呢都在名利地位各方面呢都阐述这些的，这个不一定能往生。第二种是生心，生心就是说生信之心。要信仰，要相信自己无始以来所做的业力，有这么多的业力存在。那么这么多的业力存在，我们要什么办法去消业呢？要去把这个业除掉呢？就是还另外一种，要相信西方极乐世界阿弥陀佛是发了48大愿，能够摄引众生到他的地方去。这个是一个生信的。那么这里我也是说，就分为3种说法。一向疑心的人没有信心，一向疑心的人，这种人绝对不会往生。还有一种人是一向信心的人，信心具足的人，那么这种人会往生。疑心和信心两种具足的人不一定能往生。为什么不一定能往生呢？因为他临终的时候他已经没有把握了，两心具足。临终的时候也没有把握能够往生，所以也可去，也不一定能去就是了。到他的看他的佛性法师的开示看怎么样。第3种是回向心，回向发愿的心。回向发愿就是说，我们所做的喜事、所做的善事、所念的佛、所做的一切都等等，这个好事都是回向到深考业里面去，都是回向到极乐世界去。那个这种人呢，就是凡是所有的世界上的福分，或者是任何做一点善事的人，都回向到极乐世界去。那么还有这个，我也是分为3种，一种是有用有行的人是可以往生，绝对可以往生；一种是有用无行的人是不可以往生。也许看他的临终的时候，他的掌握他的功夫怎么样。那么一种是无用无行的人，这种人没办法往生。所以在这个维系的3点9点分到3个心来说，所以我们要做这个3点的这个至诚之心和心性生性的心，还有回向发愿心这3种心记住的话，那么就是可以往生极乐世界去。你有把握这种3种心，你如果带来还有业力的话，你有福分，那么你的福分好，佛缘好的话，就可以往生到极乐世界去。那么这样子，还有我们在这个上导大师里面，他有极乐世界有3品的说法，就是说还有这个极乐世界3品上升里面上品呢上升，它有凡夫的，也有大乘凡夫、小乘凡夫，还有这个意乐凡夫。这个上导大师里边有说，极乐世界还有这个凡夫，恶乐凡夫。所以他这个恶乐凡夫存在呢，所以我必须说，他也可以往生。
I'm going to summarize what Reverend Enoch just talked about, and then we'll go on to the chanting because our time is running short. Basically, he mentioned that even though we are followers of the Pure Land School, and that we will work very hard to have the ability to chant Buddha's name at the moment of death, like following the so-called chanting the name of the Buddha for 10 breaths. But if we do not stop accumulating bad karma, we will still not be able to go to the Pure Land. And it's just like if he talked about a story in India where someone trying to steal flowers, pretending to be a duck. And when he was caught and someone asked him, "Who are you?" he answered, "I'm a duck." He said, "You are a person, how can you be a duck?" So he stopped talking, he pretended to be silent. Whenever he has to say something, then he sounds like a duck. So the moral of the story is, if you keep on doing bad karma, accumulating bad karma, even though you say you are a follower of Pure Land School, you still cannot go, because you are not a duck. You're what you are. So then he also mentioned that in order to be able to go to the Western Pure Land, you must possess 3 qualities very quickly. First is sincerity. We have to be sincere in our resolve to go to the Pure Land. Many people, they say they want to go to the Pure Land, but inside they still hang on to fame, to money, to all the worldly things. Then they won't be able to go. So we have to be pure in our resolve to go to the Pure Land. The second quality is faith. We must deeply believe that we are indeed need the Amitabha Buddha's salvation, and we will depend on Amitabha Buddha's resolutions to help us to go to the Pure Land. The last is rededication of merits to all the sentient beings. The practice of rededication of merits will help us go to the Pure Land. And the last point he made was, because in the Pure Land, according to the sutra, there are 9 different levels, different types of birth in the Pure Land. And the reason you have different types of birth is because people carry different karmas with them to go to the Pure Land. Therefore, he believes that we can carry our karmas to the Pure Land. And in Pure Land, the only thing we do is practice and purify ourselves. We will have no opportunity to create any more bad karma, and therefore one day we will be able to purify all our bad karma and reach enlightenment. So I think this is the gist of Venerable Yinlang's talk, and we're very anxious to show you, to give you a flavor of what the chanting for the dead are like in Chinese Buddhism. Dr. Ling mentioned there are many rites in Chinese Buddhism for the deceased, and also for ghosts and spirits. And I believe you have heard chantings in other type of Buddhisms. So Reverend Yilang will demonstrate some chanting styles in the Chinese Pure Land School. What he's going to do is, he mentioned there are many chanting styles, chanting tones. Just in one sutra, not one sutra, one services alone, one text, he identified 40 plus different type of tones. But today he's going to just demonstrate 3 major chanting tones. And the text that he used comes from the Festival of Land and Sea, or the Dharma Festival of Land and Sea. And this is, among all the rites that we perform for the deceased, this is the most elaborate, most expensive, the most grandiose one. It sometimes can take over 100 monks to perform at 6 different altars for 6 days and 6 nights. So he's going to chant 3 different texts from that 水陆法会。伊朗法师要为我们唱诵的。给我们示范3种不同的唱腔，第一种是叫做梵腔。The first type of chanting tone is called the Buddhist tones, and the text that he will be chanting is a praise to the 3 jewels, to the Dharma, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. 他用梵腔来赞颂3宝，他唱的是赞颂3宝。 I would like you to really listen and be very quiet and listen very carefully, because the difference between the three different type of tones are very subtle. So if you can, try to listen with not just with your ear, but with your mind or with your heart, and see if you can detect the difference. So the first type is the Buddhist tone, and to praise the three jewels.
现在我唱幻香。
That's the Buddhist tone. And usually my own feeling is that when you listen to Buddhist chanting tones, it has a purifying and calming effect. The second style of chanting tone is called the Taoist tone. And the Taoist tones in this text that he's going to demonstrate is used to instruct, give instructions to all the human beings, the human. So it's more, I haven't heard it, but I think it's more like an instructive tone.
现在我向道香，永结一切一切，三大庄严。神通妙用，十三相依花变，这个是所谓道香。
The third one is called Shu Qiang, or I translate that into meaning book tones. And this tone is mostly used when the Sangha is giving instructions or talking to the deceased, the ghost. And this tone generally is very sad because usually the ghosts and the deceased spirits are like wandering spirits. So this 书腔也是比较悲的，是传下来是专门对孤魂说法的。
红门茶子。这个是属于书香。
This is the book tone. So did you notice how the tone in general is I think that concludes Venerable Yinglang's presentation. Thank you.
I noticed that by the clock, we have just gone 5 minutes beyond one schedule. David, I have 3 schedules here. On one schedule, it says that there's discussion after this session. We are late in getting started. So if it's all right with the assembled, we should proceed with our second presentation this afternoon.